Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So this past week at Abhayagiri, been a few changes take place. The old house got knocked down, old food shed got moved, and that's change. The old house was one of the only things that was here when we first arrived, and of course we relied on it and used it for just 20 plus years. And there's many memories have been a part of it. Some people were sad to see it go. I wasn't. My strongest memory of the house is trying to get into the bathroom, and there's always somebody ahead of you, and it wasn't. There are so many people living here, and only one bathroom. So that we've come a long way since we first came, and now with the with it knocked down, taken away, then and the food shed moved, then you can see the possibility, the vision that the architect had for this space, and that's sort of really opened it up and made it much more spacious. So we'll see it taking shape over this year. Of course, ever since we arrived here, place has been in a continuous process of change, and from this day forward, it'll still be in a process of continuous change. It's just the nature of conditions of the world. And there's always going to be this changing, impermanent, uncertain, unsure nature of phenomena, and it's really ordinary. And oftentimes we just either resist change, or we're surprised by change, and you create suffering around it. Try to live in a world where there's no change, and we get bored of it. Look for some kind of change that is really gonna work for us. It's really gonna make us happy, and then we die. This is the way that we, the problem of human existence. Of one of the ways of putting it is that sense. There's always this dukkha of saying not enough, not quite right. It's not enough. It's not quite right. It's too new. It's too old. Too much. Too little. External conditions. Too hot. Too cold. We try to train the mind. It's too restless. Never, or the sense it's the mind is not quite right in the sense of it. It gets too peaceful for reflections, and too restless, too peaceful. Not enough, not quite right. So this endless dukkha is all self-inflicted, and it's just so important to recognize that, to pay attention to that, to be able to understand that, how we respond and react to whatever conditions, whether it's internal, external, with that feeling of, say, not enough, not quite right, and to challenge it. Of course, we really, in order to challenge it, we do have to learn how to make the mind peaceful and clear. And of course, we'll create dukkha around that because it's not peaceful enough, it's not clear enough, and then we look for. We always feel we fall short. But that in itself is just to be able to have enough clarity to recognize that where we feel not good enough, not adequate enough, or conditions are inadequate for. So that just that paying attention and seeing that voice of sort of, it's always kind of whining in the background. It's not enough. What do I do? Oh, or it's too much. Good grief! Well, how will I deal with it? And it's that recognizing. Sometimes it's helpful to make caricatures, or cartoon characters out of these, the way that the mind, sort of the voices in the mind that keep sort of cranking out those sort of feelings and stories of not enough, and sort of having where you don't have to take it so seriously. The mind starting that train of thought, train of reaction, and you come up with a cartoon character of that suits that voice, where you can't really take it seriously. And then come back to how to train the mind, how to live within the mind. That's like that. So learning how to bring the attention inwards. And of course, that's what one of the qualities of the Dhamma, this open-aiko Dhamma. It's leading inwards. But we need to consciously draw that attention inwards, pulling it back, because there is that tendency for the mind to go out and be scattered or get pulled into a story of some sort. Just working with the mind, one of the say categories or structures of investigation that we can be using, say, like the 5 hindrances. Where the Buddha gives these 5 hindrances, nivarna, that overcome awareness and weaken discernment. So that they overwhelm our mindfulness, our awareness, and weaken our discernment, our wisdom. So that those hindrances of sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness, worry, skeptical doubt, those are, they're a template for investigation, and to be able to recognize when they come up, because they're also, when we're able to they deal skillfully with these hindrances, and that in itself opens a space for the mind to become very settled, stable, steady, peaceful. And so it's a helpful, because sometimes this is one of the ways to use it, because sometimes we see all the different lists that the Buddha has of different teachings, and it's easy to sort of get either irritated or overwhelmed. Another list, oh no. But what they are templates for investigation, and so that when we want to make the mind peaceful, and I assume that we all do, it's helpful to have a point of reflection, point of investigation, where we can start to recognize what the mind is doing, and seeing that, seeing on the things, what are the obstructions, and just having some clear kind of categories or guideposts that are somewhat broad brush and help us to pay attention. What's happening here, so that we can, one, find the tools for understanding those hindrances, and also for overcoming and relinquishing them. I think one of the things to recognize is that in and of themselves, these hindrances are, they're dukkha in a sense, but they're also, it's almost like a strategy that the mind has for getting out of dukkha. I mean, it's misguided and dysfunctional, but it is it is a kind of a strategy that the mind has in its uh, in its delusion that if I because we feel some kind of dissatisfaction or discontent in some way, and we there's a pleasurable sense object. I'll get that, and I'll be happy. That'll work. And of course, it doesn't. But it has a keeps one occupied for a little bit of time. Just deflects attention away from one's kind of the source of one's discontent and dissatisfaction. But it's like a strategy for overcoming dukkha, but it doesn't really work. So being able to reflect on that clearly. And the same with ill will. I mean, it's ill will, aversion, and it always feels somewhat, justified or feels somehow good in a unskillful way to be able to blame somebody, get angry at that, upset, feel resentment. There's this self-righteousness, righteous indignation. Doesn't make you happy, but it feels, it's like when you have a sore and you kind of scratch away at it. It has a sort of sense of feeling good, but it's really not. It's really not good for you. And tends to spread the sore around, keeps it from healing properly. So these hindrances are like that. They tend to keep us distracted in unskillful ways. It is learning how to flag them, and so they're having those categories. Okay, sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness, worry, and skeptical doubt, as a means of flagging experience, and in particular, red flag should be going up. Okay, this is where the mind is going, and the mind is attracted in that direction, or it's just following the momentum of it, but it's probably not going to end well. Just being able, if the Buddha, and there's a certain element of one from one's own experience, one can see that, but then also a sense of trust in the Buddha's teaching and the Buddha's wisdom, that one looks around, sees, well, looks like the Buddha had it pretty nailed in terms of understanding truth, understanding the true nature of things. If the Buddha pointed that out, it's probably good to pay attention, take heed. But when we're working with the mind, And that's why. So like they paying attention to the ways that the mind it gets caught in its different swings, because that sense of like Ajahn Chah talking about one of the ways to recognize when we are aligning ourselves with the Dhamma is when there's this sense of like a just right quality, just right, just enough, just balance. This quality of balance and just right is a telltale sign that we're getting closer to the Dhamma. But that sense of when we're paying attention to what the mind is doing, and sense, because sometimes there's just kind of inertia in the mind, or it's just sort of either it's sinking or it's dull or it's apathetic or it's not very energetic. So, well, that's not a just right quality. It's just there's this kind of inertia that we need to encourage it or push it or pull it along somehow, just to get it out of its inertia of sinking into a habit pattern or a reaction, and the reaction can be any of the hindrances. But there's a certain inertia and just a sinking into a habit pattern. Because its opposite, which is also not balanced, not sort of just right, is just being swept along by the momentum of something, just the pull, the attraction of following something pleasurable, exciting, gratifying, or the momentum of being swept up in a that aversion or heat of a mood of anger. As that momentum is really strong, so we have to learn how to be just not being swept along by. Just paying attention to where the mind is where it gets caught by that kind of inertia or momentum, because they're swinging either way. And even just the momentum of, doesn't even have to be a momentum of, say, it's like restlessness. You feel this sort of momentum, getting caught up in restlessness and agitation. But also, I mean, sometimes there's a certain momentum in just sinking into dullness, and it's that one follows that momentum. These are just ways that the mind reacts, so that it either tends to a sense of spinning out in some way, or kind of imploding on the mind, imploding on itself, is sort of sinking. So just to recognize that these are patterns, that we don't have to just follow along. There is a quality of say, a just right quality, a just enough quality, a balanced quality that we can train ourselves in and be alert, attentive to with and again, those 5 hindrances are a good point of investigation and recognizing how we can be using those 5 hindrances and these different categories or classification lists of Dhamma. Say the a discourse. I can't remember where it is now. One of the things that the Buddha says is a direct antidote to the 5 hindrances is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. You're really applying the mind to this cultivation of mindfulness, alertness, attentiveness, awareness of the 4 foundations of mindfulness: body, feeling, mind, and phenomena itself, and dhammas. But when we consciously lift up awareness and attention, lift up the quality of being very conscious and clear, has a tendency to disperse those hindrances. Or if it doesn't disperse it, at least it starts to shine a light on it, so that we start to say, okay, what can I do now? What skillful means can I be applying in this situation? And we can be figuring that out, paying attention to it. One of the things that the Buddha points to in terms of, say, when the mind is being caught in hindrances of some sort, whether it's being caught by an object of desire or an object of ill will, whether it's a bodily object or a mental object, and the mind becomes either agitated and stirred up, or it starts to sink and get dull. One of the things the Buddha says is to lift up a pleasing object. Now this is interesting in the sense that because on one level there's the attraction to something that is pleasing, but it's sort of there's a delusion there. There's a gratification, or there's a running away from just trying to get out of dukkha. But when it's made conscious, when it's approached with awareness, then the Buddha encourages this lifting up of a pleasing object, and the word he uses, pasadaniya nimitta. So like an object or a sign that is delightful or pleasing, and so that we can. But then we want to be, in doing that, then the Buddha is much more encouraging us to be looking at something that is pleasing in the sense of just right with Dhamma, so that there's a sense of stability and a clarity being established in the mind, a certain peacefulness that's arising. So lifting up object of loving kindness, lifting up an object of just making the breath clear, or the a body contemplation or a contemplation of Four Noble Truths. I mean, these are pleasing points of attention because it settles the mind, it brings the mind back to truth. And as we do that, just that lifting up of an object of attention, then it sets in motion these responses within the mind as we're mindful, aware, present, clear. That sense of well-being is established in the mind, a sense of tranquility. Mind keeps settling. And then we can, as the mind keeps settling with well-being as an object, then the mind can become clear and steady, firmly established. And one of the things that how the Buddha describes the result of that process, that directing of attention in that way, that lifting up that object and supporting, encouraging it towards these wholesome qualities, is that then the inner acknowledgement or recognition, I am mindful, I am content. That's a really beautiful description of where we need to be going. The encouraging the mind towards this quality, that we can be very, very clear and confident. Oh yeah, I am mindful, I am content, and that leads us on to increased clarity and stability. So there's this picking up of the teachings, picking up of these structures of the teachings, and reflecting on it. So like the hindrances. Another an aspect of it is also sometimes like when we reflect on the way that the Buddha taught, the language that the Buddha uses. Like he points to, say, the root of root defilements, greed, hatred, delusion. But then they also say, one of what we need to be cultivating. It's like non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. I think, what the heck is that? But it's the language that he uses, I think, is really important to pay attention to, because we tend to, we should be getting something, or we should be getting some particular mental state as a result. And in the sense of, just tell me what I should do. And so, but rather than the Buddha sort of saying, oh, you should be generous, you should be kind, you should be wise. And sort of pay attention to non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. Because the thing is if we say, okay, what I need to do is cultivate as an antidote to greed, hate, and delusion. So I've got to cultivate generosity, kindness, wisdom. But problem is, we come back to that kind of habit of mind, perception, not enough. Okay. So then we're never quite generous enough, never quite kind enough, never quite wise enough. So then we keep spinning. It's like a wheel spinning in the mud. But paying attention to non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion, that opens up many more possibilities. And it also, what is it that is the fundamental characteristic of, say, a mind state, heart quality that is, say, has this sense of non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion? It's awareness. It's a quality of knowing. This quality of knowing, that fundamental awareness itself. Say that which knows greed is not greed. That which knows that quality of non-greed, that's that awareness itself. So that being able to come back to finding that encouragement, or finding that sense of, okay, this dwelling in awareness, or it's like in the Thai forest tradition, the admonition or the encouragement is so often that's being the knowing, returning to the one who knows within the heart. It's this sense, being the one who knows. So then we can, it's that quality of knowing that is able to not be trapped by greed or create an identity around like, oh, I have to be generous, I have to be kind, I have to be this, I have to be that. In fact, it's like one of the Buddha's encouragement for as the path progresses, it's like turning attention to non-becoming, like, which isn't like an annihilation of becoming. It's like that quality of knowing that isn't getting caught in the cycle. It's a non-becoming, a non-creation of identity and that process of me and mine, world outside, me back here. Non-becoming, it's the quality of awareness, of knowing, being the one who knows. So that as we continue to practice, just there's a sense of recognizing, okay, what are the hindrances? What are the obstructions? What are skillful ways of dealing with them? And there's lots written about it, but it's also we have to figure it out for ourselves. What works for us, and then how to come back to this and to be able to support and recognize and nourish this quality of knowing, being the one who knows. And it's just in that idiom that the Buddha uses. It's that seeing, okay, I am mindful, I am content. I'll offer that for reflection this evening.